Can't you feel the chaos waking, running out of time? But this world is ours to save, so hold the line. Oh, it's through.
Sup, Shy?
What's up?
We are back.
We are. It's been long overdue.
Yes,
I feel
it
like.
has. It's beautiful. It's Thursday.
Yes.
It's nice outside. It's been kind of rainy and gross, but hey,
At
that's
least it's
okay.
not snowing.
Right.
It's
well,
not
it's supposed to
snowing.
snow down to 500 feet or something tomorrow, I think, or something like that.
I'm
said.
so over it. I'm like, it's almost Easter, folks.
Yeah. Can we get some sunshine and happiness?
Please do.
Yeah. So
Well,
the last this is episode 2. Welcome back. If you want to introduce the podcast.
so welcome back.
Name
this
change?
is after figuring out the last few weeks what we're gonna do. This is Bridging the Biblical Gap with Shay Shay and JJ.
Hey.
And we've gone back and forth. Like, we just started this. This is not something that we have scripted or have even talked about.
Straight from the hip.
We just do it. So he came over, set up stuff, and we haven't even talked about anything other than what are we going to talk about? And we were like, well, we'll just figure this out. So bear with us because this is what we're just doing. But we both kind of feel the need to have something to say.
So I'm here.
So-
You're here. We got the camera up this time, so it's going to be recorded, which you'll be able to find this on YouTube.
This is our first recorded session, so
Yep.
that's cool.
Yep, we're going to switch
I'm
over
excited.
to video.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to find this on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
also on Spotify. Make sure you check it out. Share with your friends.
We got a
we'll post
Facebook page called Bridging the
Oh, yep.
Biblical Gap.
There we go.
So,
And
do
I'll
what I
put
can.
links in this video, so you'll be able to go into the description of the video, and I'll put links for the Spotify and also for the Facebook page. Feel free to follow us on the social medias as well. We appreciate the love and the support. We are here. We are back.
Yeah, we want to thank everybody for
Oh, yeah.
who reached out to us. And
Yes, the last episode was
the last episode was
It-
good. And it was, like I said, I called
didn't
JJ
bomb.
the day before we showed up the second day.
all right. So anyway, we're back.
This
Saying,
is Bridging the Biblical Gap with Shay Shay and JJ.
there you go.
We've finally decided to come up with something that we both can kind of work around and discuss and see where it takes us. I wanted to at least explain what it was because a lot of people are trying to figure out what it is I'm doing or what it is I'm talking about. And unless you've had a one-on-one conversation with me, you would assume a lot of things.
Were you shocked by the people that ended up responding to you and saying, "Whoa, hey, that's actually
A little bit. I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, people are like,
actually listened"?
yeah. I mean, some people got emotional and I was like, that's so cool because it's like being able to reach people without having to get them to show up to your house because people are busy. You know, people's lives are busy, but
Totally.
I think it's vital to have these type of discussions, especially in today's world, no matter where you are at the what you believe in spectrum. These discussions have got to be going on because you find you can relate to so many people. And so for me, I am personally a follower of Jesus Christ. I believe Jesus is the Messiah. He is the Son of Man. He came here. He died for our sins. And I believe he rose from the dead. And I do believe he's coming back. And for those of us who do have this faith, you know, you can feel this itch under your skin. And you don't know what it is, but you know something's coming. And the urgency you feel in which to share not just like the message, but your own experience and as to why you are where you are or why you think what you think is vital to a lot of people who are kind of wandering around trying to figure out why, what, who, when, where.
And sometimes the people who don't even know that they need something like that or want, need to have something like that heard, they don't even know that they need to hear it. But like I have a friend very close to me, shout out to my buddy Milos. He actually reached out to me and was like, man, I'm kind of impressed. Like he goes, I didn't know that, you were even doing this. And also I didn't know that you had it in you. He's like, you kind of shocked me. I mean, you kind of said the same thing.
Yeah,
but like,
because you were very
and
open.
it's just, I don't mind being vulnerable. But at the same time, it's just one of those things that
it's not easy.
well, and also, I mean, we mesh. I think it sounded good and we kind of feed off of each other. But at the same time, like you make it comfortable. But at the same time, on the flip side of that is it's stuff that people can actually relate to, and it's what's really going on. And that my friend that we've talked about, when he reached out to me, he's like, dude, I just listened to it. Well, and while he's listening to it, he's doing whatever he's doing, but he's listening to it. He's texting me while he's listening to it going, whoa, dude, I can't, when you said this, or when you guys said this, or
Yeah.
hey, you said this. And I was just like, one, kind of not shocked because me and him have had similar conversations, but I was more like, wow, he's actually not just hearing it, he's listening to it.
And when you have
he
the conversation,
is actually
sometimes
attentively hearing it.
you don't remember what you said. And so when something hits somebody and they say it, that's how you know that that hit them the same way something else hit you at one point.
Right.
And I think that's, the whole point of it. And it's nice because you really don't know.
We didn't have video last time like we do now.
Yeah, so
Video
now
is
we
here.
do,
Hi,
so
video.
hey, everybody.
But the
But-
video thing part of it, they didn't see when you and I were having the conversation, the exchange, when we were talking. I mean, beforehand, we didn't have this. It was a little bit set up a little bit different, but man, I was holding my microphone, sitting here, waving my arm at
We
her
just
like,
were
oh
talking,
my
and we're like,
gosh, like,
yeah.
yes, keep going.
Yeah.
Like, and it was like one of those things that like, again, this is not scripted. This is straight from the hip, from the heart, really, the hip
Well,
and
this
the
is
heart.
how you know conversations hit differently. And this is where I will tell you, people will avoid the conversation that is necessary to get past something at all costs, because vulnerability is very expensive to people. They do not want to sell it.
Well, and uncomfortable
They-
conversations aren't fun.
No.
And a lot of people avoid them because they're uncomfortable.
And believe me, I was the same person. I'm not, people know me and they think they'll say this, that, and the
She's
other.
crazy.
Me.
She's crazy.
But I really hate confrontation. It's not something I like to do. But I, at some point, began to understood, and this also was within my faith, I began to understand that in order to actually grow, mature, to get out of where I'm at, to do what I want done without, you have to be so vulnerable to be open enough to be like, here's all my crap, and
But-
here's what it is.
And a lot of the time, the people that when you're ready, when you personally are ready, and you're at that point in time where you are wanting to have those conversations and not just wanting to spread the message or the word or
Right.
anything like that, but when you're comfortable with yourself and you have the confidence to go and have those conversations, some people don't, they look at it as intimidating, but you're like, no, I'm just coming at you like a regular person kind of thing. Like, I just want you to know how I feel or whatever. And I'm comfortable talking about it now. So I'm going to tell everybody. But a lot of people are like, wow,
Well,
that's too much now.
And what happens is when you start to grow, you get to a point where the people around you who aren't ready to deal with that part of themselves, who avoid the confrontation because it's so uncomfortable, there becomes this line.
Have you found yourself not being able to have conversations with certain people?
Well, I notice the people who do not want to have a conversation with me. And the thing is I'm probably the nicest, most understanding person. But the reality is,
Did they give you that look that,
But here's the reality. People talk about, blood being thicker than water. For me, Jesus' blood is the only one that counts. Nobody else's. Second, I don't side with you based on who you are to me. Child, husband, parents, friends, whatever. Either you're right or you're wrong. And if you're in the wrong, I'm not going to sit here and inflate your ego just because we're friends when you did something you ain't supposed to be doing.
what about like today's society and stuff? Isn't money most important? And
Well,
having
to
nice
some
things
people. To some people.
and having all the finer
Well, here's what,
cheeses
and
and
here's
wines
here's
and-
what I'm going to say about that really quick, because I didn't mention it last time, and this is a lot of people's problem. Most people make their carrot a bigger car, a bigger house, a better job, the whole family, and this, and all this stuff. And every time you get to that carrot, it just isn't enough, because it's like, oh, well, now that I've enjoyed it, it's like, I could probably get a bigger carrot
or
than
it's
this.
so, yeah,
And you
it's-
keep going, and what happens is you end up losing everything completely,
or you
some
lose
way
sight
or
that you were
another.
looking for that carrot.
But I always tell people, because people struggle with money,
Mm-hmm.
and people struggle with having faith in something they can't see to provide something they can see.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, if you make your purpose that carrot and you follow your purpose and what you're supposed to do, I'm telling you the money's going to follow. Because in the Bible, God does say, like, I make sure the birds eat. They don't have to store up. They don't have to store up for you. I make sure everybody's fed, everybody's dressed. How much more important are you than them?
Exactly.
So I'm going to give it to you. You don't think God knows that you are behind on your bills? He does. You don't think he is, but he also needs something out of you. What are you willing to do that you don't want to do, that you know inside your head that you don't talk to anybody about, that you're like, oh,
or what changes do you need to make?
Like,
or
let's start there.
Right.
Because the minute you sacrifice your flesh to humble yourself enough to grow and mature, God's doors open so much faster than you could have opened the door. The door is like a metal door that's been wedged shut when you try to open it. The Lord just, and it opens.
And nothing is going to be thrown at you that you can't handle or that you haven't already been forgiven for. So,
and that's the thing, is in your
make it
weakness is where his strength comes in. He didn't use huge kings and all these rulers in the Bible to spread his word or do his deeds. They were all regulars like us.
And
who struggle.
And you're saying
like
that
us.
about, so kind of relating to, me and today and stuff like that. So I've had a little bit of a troubled past. I've gotten into some trouble. I've done some bad things, whatever the case may be. Not that I've ever fully, and I'll be 100% transparent here. I've never fully per se repented for all of those things and asked for forgiveness and stuff like that. It's probably needs to be added to the to-do list at some point. But, and I was baptized LDS when I was younger and whatnot. So, there was that in my younger days, but it wasn't a full understanding of what was actually happening. Not that I was pushed into it, but it was everybody else is doing it and stuff, so I better do it too. But it's for me personally, without going into detail about the struggles and stuff, it's what is, you say you want something in exchange, obviously, for you to be forgiven or for him to have your back or open up these doors and all this stuff. He's already doing all those things, but he does want you to turn around and devote yourself to him. And it doesn't have to be that all these things like reading the Bible and going to Bible study and being faithful and this and spreading the word. Those are all super necessary things that need to be done. But at the same time, be 1% better. And I even posted a picture not too long ago. Be 1% better today than you were yesterday.
Right.
And then do the same thing tomorrow. If that means making a better choice of what you're putting in your body, as far as if you drink or if you smoke cigarettes or this or that, like those things aren't here for you as something that he wants you to do in his light, Well,
sometimes people forget this is a relationship. And so it's not this one-sided in a cubicle stuck between scenario. This is a relationship with someone that most people can't see. Some people have seen him in all sorts of ways, and but I get that not everybody's experienced that. But this is a relationship. So this is where bridging the biblical gap came in, is the relationship I have with God and Jesus, is I believe in the Trinity, that God, Jesus, Holy Spirit are all one in 3 different forms, is through this Bible. This is my relationship. This is how I get to know the God of Abraham, the God of Bible, the God of the universe, the God that created all, the God that is our Savior, the God that is our Father. Like all these things I figure out is in this Bible. And it's not just reading it, it's reading it and understanding it, because the reality of the Bible is that you can read a story multiple times and get something different out of it every single time. And continuously, God consistently does with the people who trust him the same thing that all the others before them did and all the others after them did. Like they all followed the same path in which God guided, and he consistently showed up. And God's aware of what he can give you, but he's not going to force you into a relationship with him at all. You have to choose that. So if you want to live separate from God, you can. But when you die, that's the idea that you also chose to live separate from God. Here, you choose to trust God. You have a relationship with him. You then are entered into a relationship with him after you die. So this is where some people really struggle with the idea, because, well, what if I don't believe that? I mean, that's fine. I'm just telling you what I believe, what I've experienced, and where I'm at. Because most people like to come at me with, what about other people? And what about this? And
So sorry about the background noise. That's why I was kind of looking around.
I think it's a rain.
It is
We're in a windstorm.
storming right now. Like it is coming
Well, I was
down
going to say, one of
storming.
my headphones is kind of going out. But here's what I'm going to tell you right now. When you're doing something that God's asking you to do, the devil's like, no, what can I do? What can I do?
Let's
and I
stop
don't
this
even
right
care.
now.
And he's going to, that's the thing, is that it would make you do that. But I'm like,
Anyway, so yeah, what you were saying is basically anytime that you're supposed to do something like this, especially with the faith and whatnot, there's going to be roadblock after roadblock. And we talked about in the last episode when if my truck doesn't start, or you know what I mean,
I'm gonna
I
come
can't.
get you.
You're like, I'm coming over there, or I'm coming to get you.
well, and it goes with the idea that people need to understand, because, you know, there's so many taboo topics when it comes around the Bible and God and Jesus and the devil. Like, you're not allowed to talk about this, but you shouldn't be able to say this. And what if you did this? And the reality is, exposing what's true is necessary for everybody's soul sake. Like, that's the reality of it. The enemy doesn't see any human being as exempt for coming after. He'll come after you while you're in the womb. He'll come after you outside the womb, as a child, as a baby, as an adult, anything. If he can corrupt you from a small child, if he can take you out. And we see examples of this. You know, we were watching this TikTok,
All the time.
and even in the Bible, one guy was saying, you know, the two most prolific deliverers in the Bible were Moses in the Old Testament and Jesus in the New Testament. And both times, kings tried to take out both of these boys. Pharaoh killed all the babies, all the boy babies in Moses' time, and Moses' mom put him in a basket. He went down the river right to Pharaoh's house, ended up being raised in Pharaoh's house. Mother never told anybody. And then Jesus, when he was born and Herod found out, he ordered all the baby boys under the age of 2 to be killed. And he got out of that. So when I'm telling you, this enemy will come after those that
Over and
God
over.
has an anointing on. Let me tell you, you are not exempt. And that's where bridging the Bible to your reality today is, to me, very vital. And people don't read the Bible because it's old, it's this, it's been twisted, and you know what? A lot of things could have happened to it. But what I'm saying is that if the God of the universe can create what he has in its infinite wisdom that we could never comprehend, I don't believe for 1 second that his word is out of his reach or out of his control to his followers.
And not with
Period.
not with all of the Bible, because I can't speak to it because I have not read the whole thing. I'll be 100% honest, but I have read a large amount of it and different parts of it numerous times. And like you were saying, it's not just the Bible, but any book. I've, had a few books that I've read. But the Bible, you read, say, the first chapter 10 times, you're going to get probably 10 different things out of it those 10 times, because it's on a Tuesday at 4:00, you're having a bad day, this or that. Whatever you read, the scriptures are going to speak to you based on what you need them for.
Right.
And what you're feeling, what you're going through. It's going to be one of those things that it's going to apply to you how it needs to without you even doing anything.
And it really does apply. And I just think that so many people don't think it does. It's too old for them. And there's just not enough understanding. And I always encourage reading the Bible with people, because it's not like you can't get it on your phone. More people have a phone than they have a Bible. Like, your
Don't you
phone
guys do
is
like a
big.
Bible study on Thursdays?
We do a Bible study. And right now we're
Reading the Bible, right?
We're reading through the Bible. So on the Holy Bible app, it's a YouVersion app that I use. We have one of the plans on there that is the Bible in 365 days. So you read it in a year. And because we only meet once a week, we'll read 2, 3, 4 days at a time, depending on how much time we have.
Right.
And it breaks it up. It does a few chapters out of the Old Testament, and then it does the couple chapters out of the New Testament. And because the Old Testament's bigger, you're reading more chapters at a time than you are the New. But it goes back and forth, and it kind of shows the beginning of time versus the beginning of Jesus's time. And then you go back and forth, and it's so interesting because as we're reading this, people within the group are like, I didn't know it said that. And we're just in the beginning. I didn't know it said that. And it's like, it says a whole lot. Let me tell you what it says.
You know what's the crazy part? No, it's not crazy at all. But at the same time, what those fellowship meetings, if you want to be, politically correct, But what those meetings or
I don't, but that's okay.
oh, right.
I'm just
No,
kidding.
never that. What those group meetings or, gatherings are for and stuff like that is that. But at the same time, what's different is you're spreading it. So you and I sit down and we're reading, say 2 chapters, and those 2 chapters, man, hit me like, wow, I needed that, Well, and the next day I go to work and somebody else is, dealing with something. I'm like, what's crazy is I was just sitting down with Shayla yesterday reading the Bible and this and that. And what happens if, John Bow, whoever ends up the next day having that bad day and ends up reading those chapters.
Well, and that's all it's about.
Hey, Shayla was telling me about these 2 chapters and some about this or that. And that's how it applies to it. He takes that circumstance, uses it and applies it to his own life and then shares it with somebody else. And then somebody else shares it with somebody else. And then before you know it,
well, and that's
you got
the
all
whole,
these people.
Well, that's the whole point, and that is the whole purpose, is to get to know. Because
is that why we're doing a podcast? So we can
because
bring
it's
people
hard
together
get people
to spread people out.
Yeah, it's hard for people to get to my garage. Everyone's very busy these days,
right? Especially getting busier and busier, it seems.
And sometimes people just need something to make them feel like, okay, am I the only one that's thinking this? Like, this can't be just me. And then being able to hear something relatable and something that, like, the Bible and this relationship with God is not some pill to swallow. This isn't the Matrix. Right. But if you invest in it the same way you invest in all your stuff that is completely replaceable, and let me tell you what's not replaceable, your soul. It is not replaceable, folks. Everything else in your life is replaceable. We have all, and I know, especially since COVID, we have all had one, if not multiple people from our life pass.
Oh, yeah.
You tell me what they took with them. Nothing.
Their skin suit. That's about it.
That they didn't even take that. That's in the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Or in an urn. I mean, that's really the reality of it. And sometimes when you ask yourself that question, you're like,
I had my friend, like literally my friend and I have been before, and he's only, I don't want to say he's the only one, but he's one of the only ones that I have these conversations with, aside from you and a couple other people or whatnot, because it's like, he feels something, he knows something, he's faithful to an extent, he believes in this, he sees this, he feels something or whatnot.
Everybody's searching.
And then he hears something like this and we're kind of touching on it and kind of, talking about it and stuff. And he's just like, whoa, dude. I mean, that's, I told you, remember we were talking about, things, the world, this and that and stuff like that. And so I think
everyone's looking for the truth.
This isn't going to be for you or you or you. It's going to be for anybody who needs it. And guess what? You probably don't have to search for it. You're probably going to find it some way.
Not everyone's going to agree and not everyone's going to, and that's okay. But the whole point.
And disagreements are fine and needed.
But the reality is because people talk about Christians as, we're Bible thumpers and you just shove everything down everybody's throat. And here's the reality. You really can't. You can't force people to love Jesus. You can't force people to believe in Jesus or have a relationship with him. But if you did read what I read and you applied it and get to know him, that would be different. If I can get to someone to read this book, if anybody would, because people love reading. They read self-help books, they read diet books, they read Dr. Phil books, they read Oprah's books, read everybody's book. And this is the one Bible and this is where my problem is that so many people look at the Bible and they're like, it's
stereotyped.
Separate. Well, it's separate from the world and the history of our world. And we can talk about history all day long, and the Bible is only used as this driving force of society or whatever. And the reality is the Bible explains our world. So many things in the Bible,
the beginning, the end,
but
everything.
So many things in the Bible are referenced in history books amongst scholars who did not believe that Jesus was the Messiah, but did say that he did live. I mean, eyewitness testimony is a huge thing back then, and it was written down, and this is what came about it. And like I said, everybody thinks it's a very judgmental book, but the reality is, some guy said the other day, was the punishment for Adam too harsh? And this guy goes, time out. He goes, this creature from the dirt defied a holy, everlasting God who said that the day you eat of this, you will surely die. But instead, Adam lived another day. clothed in grace by God, and continued to live. And the one who's going to take the punishment is the one who deceived them into it. And we still have a path through Christ to get to God. So it's like, was his punishment too severe? I don't know. He lived 900 years. That's worse than most people's punishments these days. You know what I'm saying? That's got to be rough.
If they're punished. And that's the thing with all
900 years. Could you imagine being here 900 years on this planet?
No, thanks. I would get
Nobody
tired.
wants to be here for 100 years.
I'm tired, boss.
Yes. And that's so.
And that's the thing, like with having these conversations with people, they're like, wow, your podcast, there is a lot of correlations from the Bible and what's going on now and how there was, prophesized of this occurring and current events and weather and all this stuff.
People are
oh my
starting
gosh,
to
the
wake
rapture
up.
and blah, 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 and all this stuff. People that aren't faithful or anything like that, or maybe was at one point in time, they're now sitting there going, dude, honestly, didn't this all happen in the Bible? This world wars.
Well, in the Bible it says there's
all
nothing new under the sun. So everything that happens now has already happened. It's already happened multiple times over. There is nothing new under the sun. God has already said that. And it's so interesting because people don't consider, and I'm going to tell you, I was one of those, I've always had a faith. But, I've struggled doing things on my own, which is why things took so long to produce anything, because I did things on my own. And I always felt like I was chasing people because I was like, I believed what I believed and I knew more. And the more I grew, the more I understood. But since 2020, I have had more people than I ever used to chase come up to me and be like, I have a question. I heard this. And, I bartend, I have for the last 5 years, and I spend more time after work, during work, when I'm not working, talking to people about stuff that no one's talking to them about. I mean, I had a conversation with one kid back there. We're having this whole conversation about God, and he looks up, and he's like, wow. He's like, this is like the first conversation I've ever had about God. And I was like, I just looked at him, I go, excuse me? I go, how old are you? He goes, 27. I go, 27. I go, this is your first conversation about God? He goes, yeah. He goes, we never really went to church and no one ever talked about him. He's like, but this stuff is so interesting. And I'm like, that's how
you have no idea. Don't get me started.
That's how you can see that inside of everybody is this yearning to get back to what created you in the first place. Even this gentleman had never had this conversation, but his interest in something he never knew and his relation to something he never understood in one conversation is powerful to people. People done that with me.
Speaking of bars, it's crazy how much faith and spiritually, how much spiritual stuff comes up at bars. Especially you think about people, what happens when you get alcohol in your system or you get drunk. You're vulnerable, you're emotional, and stuff like that. But kind of funny story like that guy who was talking about, hey, I'm 27. This is the first conversation I've had about God or this or that or whatnot. I was actually at a bar, and this is, probably a year or two ago, maybe something like that. But I was at a bar. Probably shouldn't have been there at the time that I was there. But I was having a bad day. Stuff in my life wasn't where I wanted it to be, whatever it was, just a bad day or whatnot. And somebody that came in there, I never see that person. She was the bartender at that place, and I never see her really much anymore. I used to see her all the time. I'm sitting there. Well, in comes her father. And I've never met this man a day in my life, ever. Never, ever have met this guy. And her husband comes in there with him and stuff like that. So they're sitting there. I don't even think that he was drinking. I think he was just visiting. A lot of people knew him there because it was so-and-so's dad. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there at the table, and he sits down, and coincidentally, he sits down right next to me on my left-hand side. We're sitting at this.
Coincidentally.
Yeah. And I say that because there's three other tables out there. He sits down literally right next to me. I was like, whatever. Never met this man, but I'm friends with these people. So, it is what it is. And he starts talking to me about, how's your day? Blah, blah, blah. Shitty. I'm having a bad day, whatever, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And they're talking. And then, I asked a question. So what do you do? And he goes, oh, I like to garden. I garden. I said, oh, that's nice. He goes, oh, yeah, I got a beautiful garden. I've worked on it for a long time. And, I'm true to it. I'm faithful to it. I tend my garden every day. I'm out there working. I'm doing something every day, if nothing else, to stay busy, or, you know, it helps me clear my head and stuff. He's an older gentleman, and, you know, you could tell he's got a lot of life under his belt. He's very full of wisdom. And so I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. You know, that's cool. My grandpa had a big garden too and whatnot. And he's like, can I shake your hand? And I said, yeah. And he grabs my hand and we're shaking hands or something like that. And he said, hey, whatever, you know, and this is where it got, oh man. Like he said, I don't even remember exactly how it came up, but it was like, you know, life is kind of like my garden. I work on it every single day to make it beautiful. That's what you need to do too. He said something like that to that effect. And oh my gosh, call it the alcohol, whatever you want. I felt this like rush over my body and stuff like that. And he goes, hey, are you spiritual or whatever, however it came up. And I was like, and he goes, he's got you. Don't worry about it. You know, he's like, just do what you have to do. Keep your faith, keep doing this and stuff like that. I'm sitting here holding this guy's hand that I've never met in my life ever. And I'm looking at him with just tears in my eyes and tears coming down my cheeks. And all I could say was thank you to him. And then I was like, I was supposed to be here today, right or wrong. I was supposed to be here. I was supposed to have this conversation with you. You were supposed to come into my life right now today, because I was in a spot where there was some tough stuff. Yeah. And 3 other tables sitting right next to me and randomly bring up faith into, you know, the conversation.
It's called a Holy Spirit
and
rush.
Correlate it to gardening, which I was close with my grandfather and stuff like that. And we were supposed to meet. We were supposed to have that conversation. It was one of those, like, I didn't know I needed it.
Well, you know, and it's so funny. God's like that. Like the way he uses specifically something that yanks your soul and it hits you different.
And it could be different for me than it is for you.
Well, nothing, but that Holy Spirit rush, it's that same feeling, even if it's about something different. Does that make, like, the circumstances could be different, but when you get a Holy Spirit rush, it's so overwhelming. You can't help but cry. If you've been drinking, you're likely sobered up. Like it becomes this overwhelming experience that highlights that you'll never forget. And the reality is God's constantly on you. He's constantly trying to get you where you need to go. We're just so stubborn because we want to do it ourselves. We can do, and especially, and you know, I don't believe that that's everywhere in the world. And so when I reference certain things, I reference our country because our country is not like any place in the world. And I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing in certain aspects. You know, like, you know,
it's kind of,
it's just, it's one of those things where the people have to, like in China, where they're spending 11 hours to get somewhere to find a Bible to talk about Christ. And, you know, we have Bibles.
We're very fortunate.
And no one's talking about it. And the reality is when you start talking to people and you start showing people like these are the things that did happen. These things did happen, and check out what happened and what came about and understand like that's kind of where this, and then people are like, no, I see that. No, I see that. And people, I find it really relatable for couples and people in relationships because that's probably one of the hardest things to maintain.
It's for some people that maybe one is faithful and one isn't, but one isn't like opposed to the idea. And maybe I'm speaking from personal experience with people or whatnot, but like, how do you introduce that to somebody? And then also on the flip side of that, I'm going to throw a curveball here. If you are truly passionate about it and that's something that you need in your life and that's something that you want in your life, like Shayla, I want to be with you, but I need to have Jesus in our relationship as well. And you're not on board. Is that a deal breaker? And if so, you know, are you comfortable losing what you think you need in your life? You know, ex-girlfriend, this person, whatever it is. Are you okay with that departing from your life? And are you making that choice or that sacrifice, if you will? And a lot of people don't understand, you know, might not even respect, oh yeah, he broke up with me because he needs Jesus in his life. And it, you know, it's very cliche and stuff like that, but like, I mean, that's a testimony to your faith personally. And then
me, it's a deal breaker.
But and then how do you introduce that though? Like if somebody's opposed to it, that's kind of my question for the group, and you can leave it in the comments, and you know, if we'll put a poll up or something like that. So is it in your relationship? And if it's not, and you wanted it to be, is that a deal breaker for one side or the other of the relationship? It's crazy.
Well, here's what I'll say. One, as the side that is the believer.
Right.
For us, that is a deal breaker. We're looking for somebody, but a lot of us too find who continue to grow our relationship in Christ. We also trust that God's going to bring the person that's going to lead me properly. And I've watched this happen in my own life. Because here's the reality. You cannot be a people pleaser and please God at the same time. It just doesn't work. Because when God asks something of you,
choose a path.
Most times people, especially people close to you, will oppose it. They'll question it. They'll make you doubt it. And the reality is if it's something so instinctual that you know, but at first then you're like, it's likely something that you're probably needing to do.
And the person that's going to oppose it is going to be the person that's closest to you, that's going to have the strongest influence over you.
And so the reality is you have to come to a place
and that's the
where,
devil working.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And it's not the person that you're opposed. It's the spirit, the demonic spirit that's dealing with them, that's opposing you because you have Christ in your life. And so the reality is no one's going to want to be with me if I have Christ and they don't. They're going to be like, no, I'm not going to deal with that. Like they wouldn't deal with that. And I will tell you, with my husband now, he wasn't necessarily this faith-filled person, but he had these faith-like qualities. And I remember finding that interesting. But I knew what I needed. I knew what God was going to provide. And I had seen things specifically. I had asked things specifically. And even though John, I didn't need someone that was like gung-ho through the church. Like I know where my walk is when it comes to God. And I need someone who's going to walk with me and do this hard work and not worry about certain things. I just need someone that was going to walk with me, not walk ahead of me, but not walk behind me. And it was difficult because I watched God show me who John is and then turn John's life upside down. And I thought, yeah, he did that to me too. I was like, well, here we go. And we went through, without going into it, we ended up going through a lot, but we watched God through the entire thing provide exactly what we needed, when we needed it, and how we needed it. Did we suffer through it? Of course we did.
Shout out John too.
Right? But last time I checked, yeah, he's amazing. But last time I checked, Christ also suffered for your sins. So
a lot more than we have.
No one's exempt from suffering. But how we do things, what we say and how we react does matter. You know, and it's not for everybody. Not everyone's going to be okay with it. And that's okay. But that's where it comes down to when you're with somebody. Now, if you've been with somebody and you've had this opposing, that is something you have to deal with. Because the reality is, I know that if I was alone and only had Christ, I would still be good.
So with John, with your situation with him and stuff like that, you were saying that obviously it got incorporated into your guys' relationship.
Yeah.
But just the conversation. So I met him for the first time. Obviously, I've known you for quite some time.
Yeah.
I met him for the first time when we did our last podcast. And, you know, it was weird, you know, and I felt like I've known him for a long time. He's just kind of that person, you know, you could tell he's just a genuinely good guy, solid individual, a solid man. He's a man's man. Yeah. You can tell he's a provider.
He's a good man.
Yeah, he's a good man.
He's a good man.
But it was one of those things that, you know, we had conversations or things came up or whatnot, obviously. And it was like we were best friends, like laughing, talking about stuff or, oh, yeah, well, yeah, this or, hey, yeah, oh, I really like this guy too. Yeah, me too. And then obviously he's got a wonderland of toys in his shop and stuff like that.
Oh, boy.
And it's just like, man, like it's fascinating. But then watching him in his craft and then kind of just, you know, we started talking about his Thursday nights.
Yeah. And the thing is, John is so influential and he never has been given that platform like that.
And it's so, I was expecting it to be, I guess in my head, I thought that when it got brought up, it would be, so we have a group of people and we do Bible study and we're very faithful. And, you know, from 7 to 8 p.m., you know, whatever it is on Thursday nights, make sure you bring your Bible. We're going to be very silent. There's, you know, this and that. I thought it was going to be very official kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, his response and like his answer to, you know, just kind of speaking about it. And when he was speaking on it, you know, hey, I've been down that road. You know, there's other people that don't know they need it. And I just want to get that message out there and I want to create a safe place. And I just want people to get together. And if I can fellowship the brotherhood and or the sisterhood and whoever, you know what I mean? Like, if I can bring people together and have a positive message and mesh the two, all the better, you know?
Right.
And it was just such a positive, refreshing, I guess is a good word, feeling, and with his answer. And I was just like, wow, that's really cool. I'm like sitting here in my head, like, excuse my language, but like, shit, this is cool. I might like him better than Shayla.
No, and that's the reality is John is so
I'm just
much
joking.
nicer than me. Like, I am nice and I am forgiving and I'm understanding. I can, you know, I really am not judgmental, but John is nice, like on another level nice. And I always tell people they're like, oh, you're so nice. I'm like, you think I'm nice? You should meet my husband. He's really nice. But that's what I needed. I needed someone that was going to be nice to me. Like that was like my
Here's your
number one.
balance.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's got a lot to deal with, poor guy. But he deals well.
See, and
But
that-
without Christ,
with
I
you-
don't know that he would deal so well.
he has
'Cause-
been
and that's the
blessed with
thing is-
patience.
Well, and you know, and the thing is that even through his struggle with Christ and trying to figure it out, he's also had to learn that his relationship with God is between him and God first. My relationship with God is between me and God first. And then what God has for us together is something also. And we take that very seriously. Our relationship with God is not dependent on the other, and it can't be.
And
And we understand that. But
And
it goes together. Does that
and
make
that's
sense?
kind of why. And if I could just cut for just a second, pause from that and just say to everybody else, I know it sounds kind of cliche and dumb and stuff like that. Actually, it doesn't at all. It is kind of cliche for me to say this, but everybody's on their own path. We know that. I'm a huge mental health advocate. I've said that before. I've posted about it. You can see my postings and stuff like that, especially with males. Nothing against females, but it's just it's a big problem, and it's becoming bigger, and it's been now more pronounced and out there. But like, everybody is on their own journey, and I made it very clear, not very clear, but I brought it up to Shayla, and this is what I love about this and the situation with John and the people who have responded and the people that have said, hey, your podcast, man, it spoke to me. I like this. And I like when you said this, or, hey, it flowed this or that, man.
Well,
everybody's on their own journey.
Yeah.
The purpose of this podcast and what I told Shayla, I know what she wants to accomplish.
Yeah.
She wants, Black and White, she wants to get the message out, spread the word, connect the dots, bridge the gap. I'm on board with all of that. I like it. I'm a little bit less on the spiritual side journey right now, this moment, still trying
That's
to
what he
figure that
said.
things
And then
out.
last time he came
But-
out of left field, and I was like, holy
but-
smokes.
But at the same time, everybody's on their own journey
But yes,
at their own
correct.
stage.
And their
so
own pace.
don't feel overwhelmed listening to this. Make sure that you take something, and you can take whatever Shayla says, whatever I say, turn it to whatever applies to you, and make sure that you are taking this and using it as something that you can go through your day and like, man, remember they were talking about this, or hey, I'm going to look this up, or what
And
were
have
they
something
what
to
were they
reference.
talking about, and read that chapter or this or that if she
Right.
references scripture, and
It's
use
something
it,
to
and
reference.
not just for the spiritual side of things, but like apply it to today and look
see what
around.
happens.
And I'm not saying, hey, wake up, but at the same time,
We are.
wake up. I am saying that, and I don't want to get Matrix, Bible, world, this and that, and confuse them and
But-
scare everybody. However,
The
wake
more we
up
get in
because
these
there is.
podcasts, the deeper
Oh
we
yeah,
can go
we're
into
only
that
starting.
hole, but we're
You'll
starting
see,
the
you'll
gap.
see we'll turn here soon, but at the same time, look around and think about what's going on. If you have any knowledge of the past of the Bible and stuff, look at the similarities in it. Look at what's going on. Look at what has gone on. History repeats itself.
Mhm.
And it's just crazy that
And it
all
has.
these things, and that's her job and my job. And with this podcast, this is the goal, is to bridge the gap for
let me tell you,
everybody on their own journey.
This is
So,
not a
enjoy.
story. This is not information that I made up. This is not information I thought up. This is not information that came to me in a dream. This is information that has been written down, and I've had the
Long
Holy
before
Spirit
us.
to help discern through it over many years, over many experiences, over many circumstances, over many relationships, over many failures, over many victories. All these things has only got me here, and I'm nowhere near where I think I could be, and I don't even know where that is. Like that's this whole journey, and the idea is going into this life and not actually knowing where you're going, but knowing that wherever the Lord is going to bring you is going to be even beyond what you imagined for yourself. Because I will tell you, the one person that will hold you back, besides the enemy, the person he uses the most to hold you back is yourself. That's what I'm going to say. The enemy will use you against yourself so much so that you can't even blame other people for not getting anywhere. Because people do try and help constantly. You have to get out of, and here's where the battle starts. It starts up here. Because those thoughts, here's something I'm going to tell you. I know that God can hear your thoughts. He's omnipresent. He's all around. He knows us. He knows our hearts. So he can hear all those things and communicate and decipher. He knows what we're saying before we even say it. The devil doesn't have that. But he sure can put thoughts into your head. He can watch what you say and watch what you do and then use it against you later.
Especially
so keep that in mind. When people say, oh, what you put out, you get back. It's not that what you put out is what you get back. What you put out, the devil will take and then use against you later. It's much more sinister than what you put out is what you get back. This isn't racquetball, which I just played for the first time the other day.
Hey, did you like it, or was it too much work?
Okay. So I have a vasovagal issue.
That's what my sister has.
Yeah.
Caitlin has vasovagal.
Yeah. So Caitlin.
It, literally,
Shut up.
I'm not even joking.
No, me neither. I have a vasovagal issue.
Days,
So,
do you ever have you ever passed out?
oh, multiple. That's how
Oh,
I
yeah.
ended up getting a pacemaker.
Oh, okay.
Is because I figured out all these problems I didn't realize I had because I just thought I was over dramatic and I would just pass out. And apparently I had an issue.
That's your vagus nerve.
Yeah,
and stuff
it's
like
a
that.
whole thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
Caitlin's
yeah.
dealt with it. She has got different socks that keep her like feet warm in the compression and just all sorts of stuff to where like.
Oh, I had to
it's-
put a
it's crazy.
pacemaker. Oh yeah, it's a thing, and you wouldn't know you had that issue unless you told someone, because people think it's like a fake issue.
I was young and dumb and rude and not very caring, and I used to call it bagel. And like Caitlin would get dizzy or have her episodes and stuff. She passed out. That how she found out. She passed out in the middle of Target once with my mom there, luckily. But she was like, I got to sit down, and then ended up passing out. But I was like, Mom, Caitlin's having one of her bagels or whatever and stuff. And it got to the point where it's like, it's a serious condition. Don't make fun of it because it's not funny. It's scary.
It's
as hell.
exhausting to have. It
Yep.
really, really is. And it ended up spiking because I only have half a heart rate. And so it was shutting because your vagal nerve will shut down your organs. And
Yep.
then, but I ended up having this. So anyway, but yeah, so it's not like I was playing racquetball for all that long.
So,
We went straight to the hot tub after.
oh yeah, got to relax.
Yeah.
So I was
Anyway.
going to ask real quick, two things I just want to touch on. One, I don't know if we ever did say thank you, but thank you for everybody who tuned in on Spotify or wherever you listen to it on Anchor,
messaged.
or messaged or text.
Calls.
Shout out to everybody.
Marco.
Honestly, that was just
That was awesome.
the outpour was kind of not overwhelming, but it was like I didn't think that was going to be the response. And then she's texting me like it was like text after text and screenshot, and
I was like,
how this
people-
person like, oh my gosh, they wrote me like a whole paragraph, and and then I had
And it wasn't even the
conversations
amount
with
of people; it was the quality of what people got out of it that you just felt like, wow.
and it's one of those things that like that's what we want to do. And when she kind of brought it up, I was like, I got some stuff, I got some ideas, I'll talk to you. And we've kind of had these conversations before, but that's exactly what we wanted to accomplish. And obviously the mission has just started. We're in we're in it to win
Beginning
it,
stages.
but
It's
that's
the infancy.
what we wanted. And
Yeah.
we want to bring
thank you to
awareness and stuff,
everybody.
but thank you, but also
We appreciate it.
the engagement. So feel free to, on the Facebook page, ask questions, or
Anything
leave
you want-
comments, or
yes.
leave suggestions
If
of
you
things
guys
you
have
want touched
questions
on.
about stuff, if you guys have, and I'm
Yeah,
not saying that I have the
yeah.
answer to everything. I'm telling you that I am able to be able to communicate with just about anybody about anything. And if I don't know, I'm going to tell
And
you, I don't know.
I think it's cool that, like, hey, Shayla comments and says, hey, I listened to your podcast. What you were talking about with you and John, really applied to me because of this, or I really liked when you guys mentioned this. Have you guys thought about talking about this? Or, if you guys mentioned this, or how people or couples will, obviously we're not couples therapy and stuff like that. However, the challenges
Bible,
with faith
that's
and
the
this and stuff
reality.
like that. Like,
Yeah, it
if
applies.
that's something that you guys want to hear us talk about, or if there's something specific that you want mentioned or touched on, or a section of the Bible read or whatever the case may be.
Which we can do. And here's
Let-
the reality. I'm excited because the older I get, the more I mature and the more I read the Bible, it is exciting to read. You watch how God does things, and the more you get to know him and the more you get into this life, you just cannot help. And you're just like, let me. And all I really want to do is just share that with somebody who might be able to be like, hey, because like I said, I can't force you into a relationship with Christ. But if you read the one book that does establish a relationship with him, what would it do for you? Because I know what it's doing for me.
And I'm not saying that we don't want the fans or the friends that are just listening to support us, but
But even
also
them,
want
like my best friend,
those
she's heard me talk about this stuff for I don't know how many years.
But those are the
And
people
she
we
still
want
was
too.
Like, dude, that was
And
cool.
we don't
Like, it
need
was
the,
really
like,
good.
people to say, hey, I listen to your podcast so you could get views. It's more like the people that listen to it that actually are engaging. I want to engage with people, and if
Hopefully we can get it to a point where we do this in a live where we can engage
stream
with people.
and people can comment and we can just do it live. Absolutely.
This will
be fun.
likely be the last podcast that we do in my garage because the setup, this guy, let me tell you, big shout out to JJ because I sit here and watch him set up this incredible, and I'm like, yo, shit, you better bring your A game and have some sort of good conversation because dang.
But that's the goal though, is to have just good conversation.
And that's really what it is. But we are hopefully going to be getting into a studio within the next podcast and be somewhere stationary for however long.
So I'm going to ask you real quick.
Okay.
So tonight or last Thursday was your fellowship stuff.
Mm.
What's something that, I mean, we'll kind of wrap up or whatnot, but like, what's something that you can take from those to apply to our, conversations, or this, again, unscripted from the hip, but also what would you leave on the table, or what did you guys read last week, or what's on the agenda for this evening that you guys are going to go over? Like what
so
is
tonight, let me see, because I got to see where we ended up reading into, like I said, because it's one a day that you're supposed to read,
and it's
we
so
end up
much.
reading multiple at a time. But I've got it right here.
I think that it's really cool, and I think it's fun for you, but at the same time, I think it's really cool that John is so on board and so passionate about it, because you could just tell when I kind of brought it up and I started talking about it, he kind of lit up, and not that he was like a little kid on Christmas kind of thing, but I brought it up and he's like, yeah, and and he just kind of went on talking about it, and you could tell that he was passionate about it.
We both, and that was what I knew, that even with everything we had gone through, we got to a point where the enemy had us to a point where it was like, we have to make this commitment when it comes to Christ. And I know what I need in my life. And, and he was coming out of this storm that just shook him. And he ended up going to a men's group with a good friend of his for the first time. And his friend had been bugging him for a year to go. And he went, and the guy there was like, yo, whatever heaviness you just walked in with, it looks heavy. And John just broke down, and I don't know exactly how the conversation went and what was said, but whatever it was, it did something to him. And I knew that because
and you'll probably never understand or feel that feeling because it was in him.
Well, and the thing is, I do.
He can't even describe
well,
it.
That's the thing is, I've been there. I get that what that is, and when people say that they change, you can hear it in their voice. You can tell when people are BSing you.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me, and at the time, we decided not to live together for a while because we were both working on some things. And he called me, and in his voice, like within my spirit, I could feel like if the tide was going out and it was subsiding, whatever he had that he was struggling with was just instantaneously. And I remember being like, whoa. He said, I went over like 3 years of our texts, and I can see now where I thought you were being difficult, where you were actually giving me grace. And I just remember being like, what? And from that point on, never been different. It's always gone forward. I mean, we struggle. We go through things, like we're people. But he has never gone back on God since. We've struggled. He struggled with other people. But he has not gone back on God since. He watched God do inside of him and an understanding that was given to him that he never has let go of. And instead, God has brought him men who are needing this fellowship to grow, because we live in a society who are taking down men wherever you go.
It's tough.
And it is really rough.
Not just spiritually, but I mean, mentally and physically.
Every which
Things
way.
are tough right now. Not just for men, everybody, but at the same time,
it is,
men,
but there's an attack
some,
on men, and it's really awful, because good men are so incredibly needed for our young boys.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And even for our young girls who understand what standard in which they should be treated. Like, this is the rare, like, you teach your kids purposely, whether you're teaching them on purpose.
Anybody can make their own choices and stuff like that, but at the end of the day,
but that's the reality. Your kids are learning from you on purpose, even if you're not intentionally teaching that.
And this is
that's
kind of my reality and my opinion. So this isn't fact or the truth. Whatever you believe and stuff like that, that's fine. But my opinion or my thoughts on something like that is, more now than ever, the world needs strong men, because
absolutely
strong men and women, but this country and this world
needs
strong men more now than ever if there's going to be any kind of peace in the future and stuff. And when things really start to get crazy, those strong men are going to be the ones that are turned to. And when there's not enough of them, that's a scary thought. And I don't want to scare nobody or make this doom and gloom, but at the same time, really think about it.
Well, here's what I'll tell you.
Look in the Bible.
Well, this is where we're going to go to now. So last week we ended up talking about, we were introduced to Abram and Sarai, who became Abraham and Sarah. When people talk about the God of Abraham, God told Abraham he was going to make him into many nations. Like, if people can count the grains of the sand of the world, then so could they count your offspring. Like, it was going to be major. And that he was going to be this nation. And you can see the dynamic of Abraham and Sarah, and then his nephew Lot and his wife. And you have to understand that sometimes the dynamic is so unhealthy between a male and a female. And it's the opposite of what God intended for us. But this is what we've been cursed with to deal with, to have to overcome, because
is that like a toxic relationship?
And that's where it starts every time. Like, so God had told Abraham and Sarah that they were going to have a baby, because they were getting into their older age and they were having a baby. And they said they were going to have a son. And she's thinking, I'm too old, whatever. And she didn't want to wait. So her being impatient, not waiting on God, trying to control what she needed, she gives her maidservant to her husband. And here, who God is going to make a father of nations, goes and sleeps with this concubine woman. He's not perfect. Gets her pregnant. No, Hagar's got a baby. Well, now what happens? Now Sarah's really pissed. She is not happy, because now Abraham is paying attention to this baby, and Hagar's getting more, you know what I mean? He's incorporating them, they're a family, and now she's jealous. But it's like, woman, you were not patient enough, and you thought you were going to solve your problems, let her have this baby, and then be the mother when she's still here? There's all these situations that people don't, like, this is what they're dealing with. You can read most of that in like 3 paragraphs, but this is the reality of the everyday life that they had to deal with into this.
It's crazy. It's kind of how women are becoming so independent, and this is not just from a male perspective, but women are so independent.
We don't do things. We do things emotionally, and look what happens. We get ourselves in their own crap that we don't even want to deal with, and it's like, well, that was the wrong way to go, And then she made him make her leave. Like, she's got to go, and she needs to take her kid too. But God still protected them, because that was Abraham's son.
So what happens when the woman is so independent that she doesn't need the man? The man leaves, and then turns around and finds out that she does need the man for whatever reason, and then he's not willing to come back because he's with somebody that he's needed by. Today, well, that's crazy, right?
Well, and it is. And here's the thing is that if you could go with any circumstance back and forth and find all sorts of scenarios.
Right.
Either you break it down to the root of the problem, or you're going to be talking about every scenario out there. And this is where people have a problem. If you have a tree and it's full of life, and you've got all these issues, and you've got every branch combusting, leaves falling off, little things blowing up, and no matter how many times you bounce around trying to put out one issue after another, they're still combusting all over the place. Why is that? Because the root of the problem isn't fixed. See, we're bouncing around to circumstances that make us feel bad, that make us look bad, that make us this, that make us that
Putting
do
out
all
fires
these
instead of
and then we're
extinguishing the start of the
exhausting
fire.
ourselves and separating between these relationships because no one wants to get to the root of the problem. Be like, yo, this might be what really is the problem, and it's not good.
Right.
And no one wants to have that conversation.
Well,
And
it's
then,
uncomfortable.
of course it is. I've learned to live in the uncomfortable because at least if I live here, I don't have to stress about getting here because I'm here. But I've learned that through my life. I've learned that God does things a certain way. You know what I mean? And it's outside.
Oftentimes for a reason. And
It's
when
always for a reason.
No, but I like the word coincidence because I use that to justify myself, like saying, man, it's definitely coincidental, or, oh, he sat down to me and right next to me coincidentally.
Well, either
and you're over there
everything's
like,
a coincidence or nothing's a coincidence.
right, or everything is meant to be the way it is.
But there's too many for it to be mathematically possible. So I'm guessing
It's coincidence.
the way things is
It's
like
a coincidence. Yeah.
But so, and then with Abraham and Sarah, Abraham had this nephew, Lot, who listened more to their wife. They ended up separating because they both, had big, they had so many people. And so they ended up separating different lands. And Lot ended up close to Sodom and Gomorrah. And, and if you don't have a strong man to lead properly, women will emotionally decide things a lot of the time, And then they get to Sodom and Gomorrah, and now they're in this complete, hellfire of a town, and God's ready to condemn it. And Abraham's like, please don't, because my nephew is there. Like, please, please don't. So he sends angels in to save Lot and his wife, and they're willing to take them out, and they're running. And he says, do not look back. And what did she do?
She looked back.
She looked back, and what happened? She turned into a pillar of salt. And I'm like, and so, now Lot's without a wife. And it's interesting, you can say that in this generalization, but if you really think about the choices each of these people made in their circumstance, it's no different
rational
than the choices you make in yours. Abraham slept with somebody that wasn't his wife. How many people can relate to that? Okay. Oh, no, I don't know. People are always like, that's, and it's crazy, but people think that they're just, oh, well, that's not relatable.
Not that I have.
No, but you know what I mean? But people think it's just not relatable. It's like these people weren't perfect.
But it is relatable, 135,000%.
But it's beyond relatable.
Yes.
And so, it's just come one of those things, but it gets exciting to talk about. But I could sit here and I could go off tangent after tangent after tangent for God knows how long. And the reality is someone somewhere needs to hear something. And either God will put it on here, they will end up calling somewhere, because I also need to hear something. I'm constantly growing. Everyone listening is constantly growing. As long as you're being proactive, you're going to grow.
And maybe it's not just the people that need to hear it, but the people that hear it, their response to you or their feedback to you is what you need as far as fellowshipping, communicating, and having that open line of communication for people that have questions and stuff. Maybe that's your call to duty. Maybe that is what you need in your life is you need somebody to ask you those questions that you have the knowledge or you're prepared to answer.
I know people have questions, and I know that I know.
And if you don't have the answer,
I know some things. And if I don't, I'm
damn sure know that you could get it.
But let me see where it says in the Bible, because let me tell you, this thing's got answers for days. And sometimes it doesn't have the answer that you want, and that's okay, because you're not the creator of the universe. Who are you?
Right.
Like I said, when that guy said this creature from the dirt, and I thought, who do we think we are? Like, who do we actually think we are on the large scale of whatever you think you believe in? Who do you think you are? And that's where it's not about being holier than thou and self-righteous. It's a humbling experience.
Really bring it back to you are one speck of sand in this universe.
We're one speck of Abraham's people.
You're one grain of sand on a rock floating through a universe that we don't know that it's infinity.
There'll be people after you.
Yeah, literally.
You know very little, and you don't know as much as you think you do. And so it's not this, oh, you're a Christian, you think you're self-righteous. No. I am broken. I fall short daily. I tell myself the worst things. I have bad habits that I shouldn't have. Like, I'm not perfect by any standard on earth, but it's humbling to have someone who not only created you, who not thought of you, who breathed every ounce of goodness in you, know you so well, love you so much despite your defiance. Like, sign me up. Sign me up. Because everyone else over here doing it on their own, I've done it on my own. I have fully done it on my own. And let me tell you how long it took me to get out of that. But then when I gave it over to the Lord, let me tell you how short of amount of time he produced more than I could even carry. I remember feeling overblessed one time after my life had shattered into a million pieces. And in a short amount of 6 months, I overproduced blessings I hadn't seen in 10 years. And I just remember being like, okay.
Coincidence again.
Not even a little bit. I saw
Another coincidence.
But no, I saw what I produced.
Right.
And in all that time, it wasn't jack. Now, I was thankful that God gave me such a fire for learning and understanding and curiosity and speaking and all sorts of, because it got me onto the path of understanding where I'm at now. But I will never not do this anymore, because now I can see what God does in a short amount of time. He's just waiting on us. He will not force you, people. I'm telling you, he won't. So if someone's forcing you in a relationship, not even God himself will do that. He will not force you. But what he has for you when you show up, when you humble yourself to realize that you can't do everything on your own. Oh, my Lanta.
Especially if you ask for help from friends and you don't get it, or whatever the case may be, but then you turn and you ask him for help, and then it might not be that second. It might not be.
But
it'll
the
be
door
when
he opens,
when you need it the most.
It'll open exactly when you need it, and when it does, that's how you know the Lord brought it to you, because it was in the exact
I've had
moment.
so many experiences like that where it's just so overwhelming.
Oh, your coincidental experiences.
Yeah, well, that's quite the quinkadink there. Yeah,
Again.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's where.
Thanks, I guess. If that
No,
wasn't
but
a
that's where
coincidence.
what it is. It's like that's exactly what it is, and it's not. It's one of those. The Lord will grab a hold of you when you're. Imagine if you're being your child. And they're always wandering off, and you're not gonna, like my kids. My oldest is driving on her own, and I can only control so much.
Right.
But I know the Lord looked after me, and he loves her more than I do. I know he does. And so he's going to look after her.
I was just asking you. I was like, does that scare you? And you're like, yeah, I mean, not really.
Not really. She's a good driver for her age.
And whatever's supposed to be is going to be.
She's cautious. She's smart. She's mindful. She's witty. She's
Shout
safe,
out.
She's
Congratulations.
cautious. Yeah, girl. So she's doing, she's great, but it's like, I can't worry about things that are one, out of my control. Two, I have no say in.
That's what I struggle with so much. It's so funny that you said that. My uncle, very LDS, very, well-respected person in the community and stuff. That's his word to me, because I have anxiety and depression about stuff I have for a long time, and undiagnosed stuff even that has came to light in the last few years. But he always says to me, control your bubble. Only worry about your bubble. You can only control so many things. Control what you can control inside of your bubble.
So anything that happens outside of this place, we have no control over. So you have to let it go. Because what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Your girlfriend's at work, something happens. What are you going to do?
Right.
I mean, you can get there, but there's nothing you can do. So you can't actually worry about it.
Right.
And that's just the reality of it. And it takes up so much energy to worry about stuff you can't control. And again, who do we think we are?
Right.
We barely have self-control for our own life. Yet here we are trying to control everything around us and everybody around us, but no one has self-control.
Trying to navigate through so many coincidences.
I find it very interesting, because one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control, which people struggle with. But they have zero problem trying to control everything else. And it's like, well, how's that working out for you? Well, no, not likely. And it doesn't. If you can work on self-control, then maybe you are able to give advice to someone who struggles with it.
So is this what we're going to leave everybody with today? Is we'll wrap it up here, but self-control?
Self-control. Sure. We can leave with this for one of the fruits of the Spirit, self-control. It's one of those things that it's the only thing you have control over. So start there.
Now, is that your daily habits, or what you do that you shouldn't do, or is it that making that 1% change?
We're talking about your thoughts. Have self-control
the way you
over
think
your
about
thoughts.
things.
Have self-control over your mouth, over your tongue, over what you speak over what you say to people. You can speak life into people and you can speak death into people. Your words are powerful. So
use them wisely.
and that's just self-control with your words, not even self-control with habits and this and that and temptations. Like, self-control is not easy, but at the same time, you can't control anything else, period. There's no way to explain that. You
All right,
can't.
End of show. That's it, period.
That's it, period.
Wrap.
Done. See it. We're
See
good.
you later.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah.
But no, self-control is one of those things that we all struggle with. And having accountability, friends, with the things that you struggle with the most, some things are going to work out of your life between you and the Lord, but it's the stuff that come out of you that can affect other people that should have the most self-control, because that is what you put out there. And so,
and that's
we'll just
what
leave,
we'll leave you with that. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for even willing to comment and to be like, hey, we really liked it, to make us feel like maybe we should do another one. And now we're like, maybe we should get somewhere that's a permanent residence, because dang,
the next
amount of work you put in.
Quality is only going to go up and increase for sure. But
no,
yeah.
but we really appreciate you. Appreciate you guys joining us and coming in and listening. And like I said, if you guys have any comments, questions, you want us to talk about something,
make sure you subscribe to the channel once it's up and
please
everything
reach
like
out.
that.
Spotify,
Subscribe.
YouTube, Facebook. We'll probably do an Insta. I got to figure all that out.
Yep. But thank you to you too.
Thank you. No, I thank you. I
for
think this has been a
having
great duo.
I don't want to say the faith in me, but having the faith that this will get done and that we will do the Lord's work. But
here's the thing is, the Lord knows what he's doing.
I say that because a lot of people talk and a lot of people have conversations, and I've mentioned to people, I want to do this, or, oh, we should do this, or whatever the case may be. And a lot of things come up. There's a lot of things that defy the odds and make it to where things don't happen. And so
it's time to start talking about it.
I'm glad that you're on board and making it happen, and, sticking true, and us texting and staying on top of each other, and, saying, hey, what are we doing? What day, what time, this, that, let's stay in communication. So not only for us, but for anybody else that needs it. You know what I mean? So thank you to anybody that did listen. Like she said, I just piggyback everything that she said. Thank you so much.
Share, like, subscribe. Let us know if you've got anything to talk about, because we have all sorts of things to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got things just in our own history to talk about. So just let us know. But we really appreciate you guys joining us.
Thank you.
Until next time.
We'll see you on the next one.
Yes, we will.
Later, guys. See ya.
Can't you feel the chaos waking, running out of time? But this world is ours to save. So